Welcome to the Scott My Show, a podcast where we talk about bodybuilding, health improvement, and physique enhancement. Before we get into the show, I just wanted to let you know that I do offer one-on-one coaching. If you're interested in working with me, I offer personalized coaching where I can help you reach your goals, whether it be fat loss, building muscle, improving your health, or all the above. I provide tailored nutrition, training, and supplementation advice, one or all of those together, with 24/7 ongoing support to help you every step of the way with any questions you may have. If you're interested, you can DM me on Instagram, click the link in my profile to fill out a form, or ask any questions you may have. Also, we can hop on a free consult call where we can go over your goals, answer questions, and discuss what it would look like to work together. The show is brought to you by Element Electrolytes, and for a limited time, the Element Chocolate Medley is available with three flavors: chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry. They all go really well in any hot beverage, whether it's coffee, tea, or just a glass of hot water. And I personally love Element Electrolytes, and my wife does too. We've been using them for years. They're a great way to help boost performance, to help you get in the proper amount of electrolytes for a day, and help regulate brain health, physical health. Uh, Salt is important for a lot of things, and just drinking plain water doesn't get you the electrolytes you need. So check out Element in the description, or you can go to drinkelement.com/Scott Mize, and there you'll be able to get a free sample pack when you use my link and help support the show. Thank you. This is a quick disclaimer before we start the show. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical advice, and please consult with your physician before making any changes to your diet, exercise regime, or medications. Thank you, and on to the show. Mike Nassif is a Camp Jansen bodybuilding coach who holds a master's degree in exercise science and nutrition. He's trusted by many in the industry as a quote wizard in all aspects of coaching, including putting on muscle, training, digestion, and more. This year, he had an amazing season, earning multiple pro cards for men and women, as well as several regional show wins and overalls. Mike coaches both competitors and non-competitors. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So would love to just start with your background, what got you into lifting and bodybuilding, and this whole sport.
Yeah, I am 25 years old. I currently live in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I'm a full-time contest prep, lifestyle, and functional health coach. So everything pretty much started with me like getting into bodybuilding and lifting. Growing up, I was always very overweight. I would call myself obese, but kind of depends how people classify that. Um, and I went to college at Syracuse University, and I was always like a big partier and everything. And um, syllabus week, it's just like party 7 days a week. So like I went to school, huge party school. I was going out, having a good time, eating, a bunch of shit food and everything. And that kind of happened for like the first 2 weeks of school. And believe it or not, I remember it like it was yesterday. I went to the bathroom to take a shower and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was just like absolutely disgusted with myself and what I saw. And, I've tried to diet in the past, like through high school and stuff, and that never worked out. But I really don't know like why this time was like it for me. But literally like 2 weeks in the freshman year, I was like, this is it. I started going to the gym 6 days a week. I started doing cardio 6 days a week. I had no clue what I was doing. I was just doing like 50 sets in a workout. I was doing like double sessions of cardio. Um, and then I just got really interested in it and I started like researching more and things and kind of started making my own like workout routine and my own diet plan. And I managed to lose, I was 243 at my heaviest going into college. So that was like September time. And by New Year's, I ended up dropping to like 195. And that was like a huge milestone for me because I was always like, this is the best I've looked in years.
Wow.
And then I kind of kept that process going on my own. I ended up losing in my freshman year of college, a little over 70 pounds. I got down to 170 something at my lightest.
Crazy.
And again, like I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I didn't have any knowledge. Um, so then I did that, and I was kind of like, getting in like the YouTube and like Christian Guzman and like things, those like influencers. And I was like, yeah, I want to do a men's physique show. Like I'm going to go to the Olympia and things. So then somehow on Instagram, um, I came across Dom Kuza, and I was like, oh, this guy puts people on stage and they're peeled. So I hired him, and that's kind of where it all started. So then, he started coaching me, and kind of the rest is history from there.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a fortuitous person to
Yeah.
at that age. That's
Uh-huh.
meanwhile, I was, 150 pounds all through college.
It's funny because it's like freshman 15, and I was like, no, freshman negative 70.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then how did you make the transition into coaching people?
Um, so yeah, going back to working with Dom, I was with him for probably like the first 2 years. And I was always like that nosy client who would always ask questions and like, why are we doing this? Like, what's this mean? And so on and so forth. And um for some reason he like played into it and like would always like answer my questions. And like we started to become have like a friendship out of the coaching relationship, and that kind of furthered, and he started giving me some resources, and he like pointed me to the first thing he pointed me to was like the Trained by JP forums and things like that. So, and then that kind of led me to like go through Intense Muscle, and it just got like really, I was so fascinated with everything, and like how, nutrition can completely change your body, and how like this training stimulus can like sculpt a physique, and like how drugs and pharmacology can literally like change everything about you, and defy like basic biology. And that was so interesting to me. So like I was fascinated with the process with myself, and I was like, I want to know how to do this. Like this is so freaking cool. And then like career wise, I was in college. I went in as a pre-law, and I didn't like that at all. So then I switched to public health and nutrition. And like at the time, I wanted to do like management and things within that realm. And then it was around like junior year, I just had this like realization. I was like, I don't like this shit. Like I'm so fascinated with bodybuilding and all these things, and I really wanted to do that for a career. And like I didn't want to work for someone else. Like I couldn't imagine sitting at a desk all day and like clocking in at 9 a.m. and leaving at 5 p.m. And that just wasn't something I wanted to do. So I was like, you know what, I want to go all in coaching. And I told that to Dom, and I keep bringing him up because I really thank him for like everything. I would not be where I am without him. And he took me under his wing, and kind of kept pointing me in the right direction, giving me resources to learn on my own and things, and teaching me things. And he eventually brought me on as an assistant coach to his first coaching team. And that's kind of when things started. So I really didn't have like a transition. I really went straight into it. Like as soon as I graduated from college, I started coaching for free actually for about a year, a little longer. But as soon as I graduated college, that's when I had my first paying client, and kind of things took off from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really cool that you got into it so young and dedicated yourself so fully to it. Um, and how would you say what made you want to prioritize coaching over your own physique? Where did you make that kind of realization?
Yeah, I wouldn't really say I prioritized coaching over my own physique, because early on, like I had these really, really big goals with like what my competitive aspirations and things. And, as things went on, and like my roster grew, and then I started putting people on stage, and I was traveling a lot. I don't want to say I prioritized people over myself, because like there's absolutely ways to do both.
Yeah,
Uh, for me, it was more so honestly like being fully transparent. It was more of a thing of like burnout, kind of where it's like my what was just my passion also became work, and then the two kind of collided. So then I just lost a little bit of enjoyment for a good period of time. And I just didn't like it like the way I used to for myself. Like I always loved coaching and helping people, but it was hard for me to find enjoyment in doing it myself. And I never like fucked off, right? But I wasn't. as I wasn't taking things as seriously as I used to. Um, recently that's changed a little bit. I've kind of had too much time away where now it's like I got this itch and I'm like I want to go all in again and kind of get back to things. So no, I wouldn't really say I prioritized. I mean, if it came down to it, I would, but I think there's a way to do both. And it was more so just a matter of I didn't enjoy it the way I used to. So that's kind of why, things happened out the way they did for me.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And like there are a lot of people who are trying to get into coaching who are young or even older. How would you say, like, what would your advice be to them as a coach of growing your skill set in like a short amount of time? How did
Yeah,
you?
yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, probably from the outside in, it looks like a short amount of time. To you, it probably doesn't feel
Yeah.
like it.
No, yeah, so I mean, man, this is such like a good question because there's so many different aspects you can go about this from, but there's so many different information sources. Like people literally offer mentorships now, and there's a million books, and like we have freaking Google and Instagram where people are just putting up free informations in these forums and things. And for me, it's like I've just always had this insane curiosity for everything, and I just always want to learn, and I never even till now, it's like like the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like I never got to a point where it's like I think I know everything because even now I'm like, shit, there's so much more I don't know.
right.
And that's okay because if you get to a point where it's I know everything and I'm gonna stop learning, it's like you're never gonna advance yourself. Like people are gonna surpass you. And I dedicated so much time and I still do now. Like I literally have times in my days blocked off for like furthering education and new education and things. And I read all the time. I still go on forums sometimes. Like I've had a mentor since I started coaching, and I still hire new mentors to learn new things. And even if I know a lot, it's just getting a new perspective of things. And it's all about just like not stopping your education, continue to learn and continue to get experience. Like I still remember going back to like college. I literally my daily schedule, outside of like work and classes and things, it was I'd go to the gym and I'd sit in my fucking dorm room and just sit through the forums for hours and hours on end. And I would do that every single day. And obviously once you get older and like you have real priorities and things to take care of, you don't have as much time to dedicate. But like there were days I literally spent like 8 hours just like reading and learning things. And I still do that now when I have free time in between client work and stuff. I'm always learning new things. And the education base is so big because yeah, experience is 50% of the equation too. But to
Yeah.
get that experience, you need to have that base education to allow you to apply it. So you have so many resources. Like invest money into things. There's a lot of free things. Invest money too. I've for sure, like, I don't have an exact number, but I've for sure spent tens of thousands of dollars on education by this point. So yeah, it's just you can't stop learning, man. There's so much to know, and even if it's not new information, just getting different perspectives with things, and coach for free because at first you're not going to have people are going to trust you because you don't have a resume or anything. Talk to your buddies, say, hey, let me coach you for free, start building a resume, start applying new information to things and seeing like test yourself and see what you do know and how you could put it in the real world practice. And just start developing that resume and then things kind of, keep that same mindset and that hunger that you had when you were first trying to establish that, like keep that mindset throughout your entire career and things will go well.
Yeah, I think that's so key. It's an immediate turn off for me when I hear there are a lot of people in the sport. I hear it saying like, "Oh, there's nothing new. Science doesn't apply to us." And of course, just like you said, like experience is half of it, but you can still learn from other people's experiences and be open to different perspectives. And when people are very closed-minded, it's like why why not try to take things in like maybe you're not smart enough to like filter the good from the bad and that's why you're closed-minded. I don't know.
100%, man.
um and then one thing I was asking a couple of our mutual friends, Paul and Mike, who also have been close with Dom for a long time. questions to ask you. And one thing they highlighted is you've had a lot of success with adding muscle to people in the off season. What do you think you do differently, or what do you think some of the keys are to managing off seasons and like either from a training or drug or diet or just psychological perspective sets you apart in helping people grow?
Yeah, so I, I don't want to take like a holier than thou approach with this and say like I'm better than other people because there's a lot of good coaches, right? And I'm not claiming I'm the best, but what I do think is one of my best skill sets is the psychological aspect of things,
Mm.
whether it's off season or prep. And what I mean by that is I feel that I'm really, really good at figuring out what makes an athlete tick. Um, and getting the athlete to a point where they realize that their goal is so important to me as well. And then just getting that buy-in where it's almost in the sense where like they don't want to let me down. So when I get an athlete to think that way, where, they just don't want to let themselves down, they don't want to let me down either. They'll do absolutely any and everything to make sure that they tick their boxes without fail. And that's something, I mean, I would say off-season or contest prep, but I think that's one of my greatest skill sets. I mean, when we talk about the X's and O's, like those are important too. I think it's just a matter of care, man. Like a lot of people don't care about their athletes, like small things like training video. I review easily 300 training videos a week. Like that's the sounds like the simplest thing, right? But it's so important. Like training is a stimulus to get someone to grow. I need to know how
Yeah.
someone's training. If you're training like a bitch, then it's like, we're not gonna have a response out of things. Um, so like, PEDs, diet, like there's a million ways to skin a cat. Like I'm not going to come on here and say like my approach is better than everyone else's and my approach changes even individual to individual, but I think it's just a level of care with people and like, asking the right questions and digging into those questions if there's issues and taking the time to do things. That is probably what I would say is the biggest things for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an amazing answer and a great trait. And I think I see the same thing from Dom working with him is like every time something comes up, he's willing to work through it with me. And he's also very good. People ask me about what's different about working with Dom, and I say he's kind of like a sniper. Like he'll take in a lot of information on your check-in form, but then he'll like narrow in on like the one thing that will move the needle for you.
Yeah.
So, if there's a lot of stuff going on, he'll probably ignore 90% of it. I'm sure he's still reading it and thinking about it, but he's like, "Hey, we're gonna focus on this."
Because
So
yeah, I mean, that's how I like to explain it to people is if someone gives me feedback on something and like I just don't want to address it because of laziness or whatever, I'm like, okay, I could do that, but I'm missing an opportunity for my athlete to progress because if I address that thing that they need help with, or I leave it alone, if I don't address it, then that's going to be an issue and that's going to affect progress. So I'm going to address it because I want my athlete to progress.
yeah. Absolutely. And off seasons can seem long, but if you actually like count out the weeks and the time you have, it really counts. It's, those days stack up.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and one thing I found really interesting is some of your philosophy on training and um, how has your approach to training evolved over time for clients and yourself?
Hmm. I wouldn't, for myself, I like to try a lot of different approaches. Just seeing what works and what doesn't. I've tried, um, you know, John Meadows training. I've did DC training. I've did, I don't know if we call Jordan Peters training like a type of training. I've did high volume. I've did, body part splits. I've did super high frequency splits. So I kind of just like to experiment everything myself, and see what works for me. As far as clients, I mean, I don't I don't like the question, honestly, like what is your training philosophy? Because like I don't really progressive overload, if we call that training philosophy, it's always, you're gonna get stronger, you're gonna build muscle. That's always been my biggest training philosophy, but
Yeah.
approaches are so different. And I know I have some athletes who train ridiculously low volume, and I have some athletes who train really high volume. And, part of coaching is just figuring out, um, actually, let me rephrase my answer to that. My approach has changed because in the beginning, I would put everyone on the same type of splits, or let's say low volume, for example, and top set back off style or whatever. My approach has evolved in knowing that people respond differently to things, and that doesn't work for everyone. And it's finding what is fitting best for that individual athlete because it changes so much, man. Like some people, it's like you switch them from high to low volume, for example, and they blow up, or vice
Yeah.
versa, or high frequency to very low frequency. And it's like, damn, this is what clicks for them, and this is what works for them, and they respond, or vice versa. So I don't progressive overload is something I'm very big on, which I feel most people should. That's pretty clear in the literature. But outside of that, it's very individual, kind of with the approaches we take.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very well said. I, I've done it all as well. I did my introduction to training was about 4 or 5 years of super slow, 10-second concentrics, 10-second eccentrics, one set to failure once a week. Like the original Arthur Jones type
Uh,
training. I didn't make a lot of progress on that. And then uh, after that, I went to very high volume. I was working with a coach who follows a lot of like Renaissance periodization principles, and that was really good for me, mostly to like I think it was actually smarter to start with that than pure progressive overload training because I got a lot of practice with a lot of movements, and learned more about like technique and things like that. And then it's evolved since then to a much lower volume, strictly progressive overload approach. But it's all been valuable, I would say. Uh,
One thing I will say too is like beginners, I always like a high frequency approach. Always, always, always. That's what every new athlete who doesn't have a lot of experience, they're going to start with that because, like you just said, it's practice, man. You get better at anything with repetitions and practice. And if I can get someone to do a squatting pattern 3 days a week, they're going to get really freaking efficient at squatting. If I can get someone to do a hinge three times a week, they're going to get really freaking efficient at hinging. So
yeah,
that's how I'm always starting someone.
yeah, absolutely. And then I had an idea for a question. This may not work well, or maybe interesting. I wanted to see what you think people put too much emphasis on in different aspects of bodybuilding, like unnecessary emphasis. So I guess let's start with training since we're talking about that. What do you think is something people put too much unnecessary emphasis on in training?
Execution, 100%. Way too much emphasis on. And
Really?
what I mean by that, yeah. So what I mean by that is because someone's going to take it and twist it. Execution is so important, man. Like, right,
Sure.
your stimulus on the muscle, it's going to be dictated by, your mechanics and how well you move.
Yep.
But I've seen with my own athletes and I see with people all the time, it's like some of these people are just it's almost like intensity and execution are mutually exclusive, and it's like you can't do both at the same time. That's what it seems like for some people.
Mhm.
And some people will train crazy, crazy, crazy controlled eccentrics and pauses in the end ranges and amazing form, but then it's like you can't do that past like or further than like 4 reps in reserve because for God knows what reason. Or and just furthering off that, it's like I would much rather see if we're comparing two sets and one person's got 100%, their execution's bang on, and they can't train intensely versus the other person who's like, let's say 80% with their execution, like maybe a little bit off, a little fast or whatever, but they're training balls of the fucking wall. That person's going to progress so much faster than the other. So I mean, that's honestly like coaching remotely. That's the hardest thing for like newer clients and like non-experienced people is teaching them how to find, the middle ground.
Yeah.
A lot of people, vice versa, I say, okay, train intense into failure, and it's like they train like a shithead, and there's like no control over anything. And I'm like, you're not
Yeah.
even tension on that muscle. But honestly, like that's even to this day, it's still a difficulty with, newer clients because you can't train them in person. So
Yeah.
honestly, that's probably the biggest drawback within online coaching.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I hear a lot of people talk about like, oh, people are way too technique focused now. People are like doing these fancy movements and like not really using any weight, not going to failure. And it's like I have a very narrow view of it because I train in mostly commercial, kind of like half commercial, half bodybuilding gyms here in the New York area. And I never see that. Like I see the complete opposite. I see people flinging weights around, hurting themselves, dropping weight stacks, like going crazy. And they're also not targeting the muscle at all, and probably not going to failure. They're just like making it look hard. But it's very rare that I see someone like trying to do this like very precise training. Um, I've seen it like once or twice with like some young kids in the gym, and I'm like, oh, now I get what people are talking about. But yeah, it's just funny how like you obviously see a lot more than I do, but in my narrow world, I never see that.
Yeah, no, that's really funny because I see the complete opposite.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Great. Then how about in dieting, what do you think is something people put too much unnecessary emphasis on?
Mm, I'm gonna go with fatigue management.
Hmm, interesting.
So it's important, right? We need to manage fatigue throughout a fat loss phase or a contest prep, but I think also like how social media has portrayed this is like people are scared to do the hard work. And it's like you can never be fatigued is almost what some people think. And like, I even see it with some of my athletes. Like you tell someone do an hour of cardio or like even 5 days a week of 30 minutes of cardio, and it's like this is like a lot. Like, oh my God, my cardio is so high, or like, oh no, I'm below 2,000 calories. It's like the way fatigue management's portrayed it, I feel it scares people off from actually doing the hard shit. And the reality of it is it's like you need to get to that point. You
Yeah,
know, very, very few people can go through a major fat loss. I mean, we'll in the sense of bodybuilding, very few people can go through a contest prep and get away without, you know, doing really fucking hard stuff and just having extreme fatigue days.
yeah,
Um, so I think that's something a lot of people are scared of. And it's like when you feel fatigued, or it's like if you have to push really hard and you feel like shit, then it's like something's wrong. Like, no, it's not. You just need to keep going.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I think that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Um, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think people can put up with a lot more than they think they can. Like your body can tolerate a lot more than your mind in a lot of cases. Uh,
Mhm.
I think another thing people put too much emphasis on in dieting is satiety, like trying to stay full, trying to find ways to feel full and satiated.
Mhm.
I see way too much of that.
That's a good one. Yeah, you see all the 0 calorie. You even see these like 0 calorie noodles they make now.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they're the ingredients. Like I can't even pronounce them.
yeah, nothing bad can come from that. Um, how about in gaining size and putting on muscle? What do you think people put too much emphasis on?
Um, I would go with chasing a number on the scale.
Mm,
Um, I think that's a very, very easy way to put on a ton of body fat. That's something my views changed on too. Um, I don't think we need to drive the scale up for the sake of it. Um, to me, like what we do in the gym is ultimately dictating everything. How's performance in the gym and how's recovery, and food changes and nutrition changes are should be reflective of that. Um, body weight's gonna have to go up, obviously. But some people, it's like they just try and push for like this rapid gain. Like, okay, I'm gonna push for 16 weeks. So I want to put on 30 pounds. So I'm gonna, drive the scale weight up to reflect that every week, like, okay, then you're going to end up, you know, 29 pounds of body fat and 1 pound of muscle if you do that, if you're not going off,
Yeah.
actual feedback and what's actually needed to push. So I think that's something people push way too much food when it's not always necessary.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I think piggybacking on that, I would also say like protein and number of meals. Like there are people who think to gain size, you need to magically eat like 7 meals a day or something like that. And, you need to have a ton of animal protein in every one of those meals when at least I've found in a gaining phase, like if I go above 5 meals, um, if they have like, 40 grams of protein, like a full serving of protein, I'm not going to be able to eat because it's going to be way too much food. And part of that is because I need to eat like 5 to 6,000 calories. So I'm getting a lot of trace protein from other stuff too, but I feel like people are just pushing a lot of protein in their gaining phases when they can probably get away with a little bit less and streamline digestion more.
No, 100%. I mean, even with like the meal frequency approach, I think for majority of people, five is probably going to be the best spot because, you know, also talking about an off season, like building muscle, like digestion is so big. So, if you're cramming meals in together, you really actually are, you're not digesting in between, like you're eating meal three and then meal four is going in while meal three is sitting in your stomach and then it just
Yeah.
piles throughout the day. So, and then we know all the issues that come with poor digestion. So, I mean, that's a huge thing. And like even in an off season, I like high protein with people, but I'll scale this based on digestion. So I'll go as high as someone can tolerate before they get digestive issues. Like, and that could be as high as 2 grams per pound of body weight, and that could be as low as, zero point 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. It really depends on the person. But yeah, there's no like magic number of protein you need to do. It ultimately comes down to what are you digesting and assimilating.
Yeah, totally. Um, and then lastly, what do people put too much emphasis on with regards to PEDs? I know this is a broad one, so take it wherever you want to.
Yeah, I got to think on this one. Um, this is a broad question, but I would say maybe like total milligrams.
Mm,
I guess I think a lot of people think more always does more. Um, Actually, let me rephrase my answer. I'll take a broad approach with this and just say PEDs in general. Um, I think a lot of people think it's just like the magic answer, and like in some cases it is obviously. But too many people just push like egregious cycles when you you can't follow a diet, you train terribly, your recovery sucks, you're not sleeping, you don't drink water, um, and it's not going to outweigh the benefit that you're getting from nailing the foundations of everything.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like right, you run a cycle, you're going to have a good response to it, most people at least, but uh, a lot of people are so fixated on I need to run a cycle right now, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to push more, and it's like maybe, but you should probably make sure that everything else is in check and conducive to that first because it's like, okay, you want to get to here, but this is where your PEDs are, and this is like everything else in the foundations. These are down here, so then you use PEDs, you get to here, or you nail these, your PEDs are non-existent, or you do both and you go up to here. So it's like,
Yeah.
both need to be done at the same time. Otherwise, you're not getting the real benefit from it. If that, I
Yeah,
don't know, an analogy.
absolutely. No, that was a great explanation. It's funny. I was talking to Corey Hagman yesterday. She's a bikini IFBB pro, and she coaches a lot of bikini people. And she's very intelligent. And she was talking about, especially with bikini and like viralization, you want to be very selective of when and what you use with regards to PEDs, and like making sure you're getting the most bang for your buck when you do use them. So like you could use PEDs at the end of a bikini prep or the start of a bikini prep, but like what are they really doing there because, it's not maximizing growth. It's helping you hold on to muscle tissue a little better. It may make you look harder if you're using like an oral before stage, but she sees a lot of people outside of contest prep too, like using a PED to make up for a deficit somewhere else. And I think men can learn a lot from that too. I see it all the time. It'll be like, oh, well, digestion isn't on point, or like sleep hasn't been great, but I want to keep making progress, so I'm going to increase the cycle. And I think you're absolutely right that like there's a multiplicative effect when you have all the boxes ticked and you implement PEDs.
Don't get me started on the bikini PEDs.
Okay. And then uh actually go ahead. I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear it.
But it's pretty much the same thing. What would you say her name was? Corey?
Corey, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Like man, don't get me wrong, like I'll use my roster for example. I have some bikini athletes who train like a freaking tank. Um, but it's like, man, the muscularity in bikini is not high. Like it really isn't, guys. So um it's like some of these people are running cycles and it's like you literally don't change at all because like there's no training stimulus
Yeah.
and it's like if you really have I don't know if my girlfriend's the best to use in this, but I'm gonna use her as an example. It's like, okay, she got her IFBB Pro card this year and she's ran one cycle, like for the last 4 weeks of prep. That's literally it.
Wow.
And it's like she trains so freaking hard. So it's like she gets them like it's not high in bikini. Like we don't need to be doing cycles all the time and like high doses of things if the training stimulus is there. Like it's exactly what Corey said. It's a cop out for like the lack of or the deficit somewhere else. And
Yeah.
like you literally don't change, man. Like I've had people on cycles before and that's a mistake I've made and like I don't do this anymore unless their training's there because they literally don't change.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I think men can learn a lot from that too. And then I wanted to ask you because you posted recently, and I think I've heard you talk about in the past, helping people with gut protocols. What is a gut protocol, and could you maybe give like an example or case study, and what some of the aspects are?
Yeah, for sure. So gut issues in general, we'll start there. If I go too in depth, just stop me. But gut issues are super prevalent, right? Like, whether this could be chronic constipation or diarrhea or bloating or heartburn or gassiness. The list can go on and on, right? Even you could see in blood work, like thyroid issues, for example, or mineral deficiencies, acne, so on and so forth. Um, so gut dysfunctions obviously are very, very prevalent in the industry, probably in Gen Pop too. Um, Now, the first thing is just analyzing like what is, the issue, what is this dysfunction and what's causing it to happen. Um, Before I talk about protocols and like I'll get into that, I don't necessarily like pushing the term protocol much anymore because the reality is a lot of these dysfunctions that people have are issues that can be corrected without using a supplement, without doing like crazy restrictions and things. It's just modifying the lifestyle.
Mm,
Um, the root cause for the number one root cause of most gut dysfunctions is just high stress, whether that's work stress, relationship stress, general life stress, so on and so forth. Poor eating habits, alcohol, antibiotics, um, poor water intake, poor sleep, like the list can go on and on. So before getting into protocols, that's just to make that clear. The first thing to always address is those lifestyle habits, because if you do get into a protocol, which I'll explain, and the the insult that was there in the first place that led you to that issue is not corrected, you're just going to relapse and go right back to it. Now, with a protocol and what I like to do for testing for GI issues is obviously lab work, blood work is going to be the first thing. You can see a lot of trends on there with certain tests and make correlations and kind of pinpoint you in certain directions with things if further testing is warranted, and obviously matching that with symptoms, and then a GI map. So a GI map is going to give you pretty much a comprehensive look at the microbiome in your GI tract, different pathogens, infections, bacteria, so on and so forth. And once we kind of identify that, let's say like for the sake of this conversation, all the lifestyle habits and everything are good. Um, a gut protocol is going to be designed to obviously eradicate what's going on, and get the gut microbiome in a well-balanced state. So, it's hard to give a generic answer for what a gut protocol in looks like because this can really differ from person to person. For one, you could take an antibiotic approach, or you could usually go an antimicrobial approach. Um, so really how this could look like in the beginning, how I like to set things up, I'll focus on reducing inflammation, um, improving the gut lining, strengthening the gut lining, and then essentially moving into what we call like a kill phase. So this is where we're going to use certain supplements, antimicrobials, potentially antibiotics to help eradicate, whatever overgrowth or things we have going on, whether this could be just general dysbiosis, where you're having high, opportunistic bacteria, maybe some H. pylori, candida. There's a million different things. So really eradicating whatever issue is there. And then on the back end, when we are eradicating, the bad bacteria, we're also eradicating the good bacteria. It's really impossible to like be selective with that. So then on the back end, we call this the repop phase, repopulation, where we want to get back the good bacteria to where to healthy levels, because obviously when we're eradicating the bad stuff, we're also eradicating the good stuff. So we want to get the good bacteria back into a healthy place, and that's kind of essentially what a gut protocol is. Now, this can also differ too. Like, not all gut protocols are, a gut protocol could be, for example, just a repop. Some people just have gut issues because they have low commensal bacteria, which is beneficial bacteria, and they don't have any opportunistic or overgrowth. So it's not always like a kill phase involved. So that's why it's very individualized. And like, I don't recommend to anyone to do a gut protocol, or take, outside of generic like mucosal lining support supplements unless you are getting a GI map, because it's so individualized and specific. And there's a ton of ways that, you could make the issue worse if you don't know what you're actually looking at.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's really complicated and interesting. Um, it's crazy how many people struggle with different digestive issues. A lot of it's unspoken, obviously, but yeah, I think it's weird that more coaches don't know how to do these types of things because so many people suffer from it and it can affect so many different aspects of your life and your progress.
I think it's so important because, whether you're trying to build muscle, whether you're trying to get in shape for a show, whether you just want to have a good quality of life, like man, even like lifestyle clients, I've had so many people who they're just so uncomfortable because they're constantly bloated all the time and like gassy, or it's like they haven't had a bowel movement for like 4 days. And like I'm almost happy in a sense that now it's talked about. Like I can make the argument that it's like overly talked about and
Yeah,
everyone thinks they have a gut issue when they don't. But it's like those things aren't normal. And like, man, could you imagine not having a bowel movement for like 4 days? Like that's
yeah,
crazy. So it's like now some people who have like these extreme issues are like aware of things, which I think is beneficial that, some of these people can get help now.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had some type of stomach virus a week ago, and or no, on Thursday, and it was the most intense stomach virus I've ever had. Uh, and I can't imagine having even like a fraction of that regular. It'd be,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I had to go to the emergency room. It was bad.
Like, would they give you antibiotics or something?
No, they gave me one bag of fluid. I probably should have had more than one bag of fluid. Um, I had about 50 bowel movements in 5 hours. Uh,
Jeez.
yeah, so I was extremely dehydrated. I couldn't even, I was also throwing up. I couldn't even drink water. So if it had lasted any more than like the 14 hours it lasted, I definitely would have been hospitalized.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. It was,
Okay, now is it just like, were you
yeah,
good?
no, I went back to totally fine the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very acute, but it's extremely intense.
Wow.
So yeah, gut health is important. One thing I wanted to ask you, this is a bit of a out there question, but a lot of people complain about at the Olympia, there are too many competitors. You know, there are like 80 to 100 bikini athletes, 80 men's physique athletes, 80, 60 or 80 classic physique guys, and it just takes forever. It takes like 3 hours to get through the individual routines. Um, You've been to a lot of national shows this year and in the past. Do you think there are too many competitors at national NPC shows?
Mm, I do, but yeah, I mean, like for sure, man. So shows are watered down. Like you look back on like NPC News and like 2018 at the bodybuilding classes, it's like the top six in each class are now like pros, and right,
Yeah.
it's not as competitive as it was.
Hmm.
Uh, I still don't think anything should be done. Like I put myself in the perspective of the business side of things. Like, if I was running the NPC, I'd want as many people doing my show too. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's watered down, but like, do I, if I was in their shoes, like I would do the exact same thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Do you think they could have like semifinals? Like you have to win a local or regional show, then you have to win a semifinal show, then you go to nationals?
Yeah, I've never thought of that, but that's a pretty good, that'd be something good to consider. I
Yeah.
wonder how that would work out with things. I mean, it'd be more shows for them too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was an idea Paul actually had for the Olympia is like for classic and for bikini, they should have like semifinal shows. The challenge is like there are a few challenges with it. One is you'd have to make sure that the semifinals are like evenly spaced throughout the year. So people aren't like qualifying for a semifinal show in February, then having to wait till like June to do their semifinal show, then the Olympia's in October. The other thing that would be challenging is like potentially some promoters could be pissed that like their show is not sending people to the Olympia anymore. Um, but I guess it's still like the same pool of people who like need to get to semifinals. So I don't
So
know how that would work.
with the semifinals though, I mean, how there would have to be so many because like, right?
Yeah. Well, what you could do is you could have like one every 2 months or one a quarter, and say like top three at any semifinal show goes to the Olympia,
Okay.
something like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then that way, like, and you could even on top of that, you could have like tier A shows that are straight to the Olympia. Like you could be like New York Pro is still a
Yeah.
straight to the Olympia show, or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I wonder if you've ever thought about that.
yeah, I think it would be complicated with like managing people's prep timelines, and it could obviously backfire, but people are already competing all year anyway, so I don't know how much of a difference it would make.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just an idea. I think it, it the I think the way that Arnold does it is really interesting too. Just invites. I mean it's working really well for them. They're obviously putting on a very good show every year.
Is NPC top three in the class who qualifies for national or two?
Top two, top two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like
And
I could get on board with like class winner. I
yeah,
mean, like, from a competitive standpoint, like you
yeah, I
should be
agree with that.
qualified, but like I feel like that could weed
Yeah,
out.
I think you should have to win your class,
Yeah.
definitely. Because you can still lose the overall and go
Yeah.
to nationals. Which is what I did. I won
Yeah.
my class and I lost the overall. But I think also it's really complicated. Like some national shows, it's like they have different criteria for qualifying with regards to timeline. So like one national show will say you have to have won a local show this year. Others will say you have to have won a local show within the last 12 months. Others will say you have to have won a local show in the current year or the year before.
Mm.
So it's like just really disconnected. Um, but yeah. What are you looking forward to in 2025, Mike? What goals do you have, and what do you have on the horizon?
Uh, when's this podcast coming out first?
Couple weeks,
Okay.
or I can release it later if you have an announcement you want to.
Okay. Yeah, my first goal, I'm gonna propose to my girlfriend in 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
I'm very excited for that. Uh,
Amazing.
from a personal goal for me, I want to get in the best shape of my life this year. I want to get back to the roots of everything that kind of got me into bodybuilding and um, go off the passion that, started everything for me in the first place with this and um, see how much I really can change going all in this year with everything. Um, Financially, I have obviously some goals within, income and stuff and saving. From a career standpoint, I would like to get 5 pro cards this year. I would like to get my first Olympia qualification. Um, and yeah, that would be the biggest ones.
Awesome. It's going to be a great year. I'm confident that you can accomplish all this and more.
I'm excited.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Mike. Really appreciate it. It's great chatting with you. Learned a lot and continue to learn a lot from you. Where can people find you? I'll have links to everything in the description, but where can people reach out to you or follow along?
Yeah, my Instagram is Mike_Nassif. My email is mike@camp-jansen.com. You could also find me on the Camp Jansen website. Best way to reach me is probably through email. Sometimes DMs just get lost time to time.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.